Hello everyone, it's Farket here, and in this video I'm going to talk about what's happening with Sons of the Forest. It is going to be released in early access instead of full release now. They've listed the information about it, and they've also released system requirements. Now first I'm going to read what they wrote on the Steam page, and then I'm going to cover my thoughts about it. I'm going to read the whole section so you don't have to read it. What the developers have to say. Why early access? We set out to make the ultimate survival horror simulator and feel it is now at a stage where it needs player feedback and involvement to help push this even further. Our experience with releasing our first game, The Forest, in early access was extremely positive. We got a lot of really good feedback and suggestions and were able to shape and improve the game drastically, rather than if we kept the development internal. Having players involved at this stage will make this game even better. Approximately how long will this game be in early access? We are hoping to be in early access for around 6 to 8 months, but this could change. We will leave early access when we are certain this is the best version of the game possible. How is the full version planned to differ from the early access version? In addition to bug fixes and improvements on balance and core gameplay, we plan to add more items, more things you can 3D print, more to build and discover, as well as adding additional game mechanics and lore. What is the current state of the early access version? The game is playable in both single player and multiplayer with up to 8 players. There are caves to explore, a story to uncover, a brand new building system, crafting system, a new arsenal of weapons, dynamic weather and seasons, terrifying enemies, and lots more. Will the game be priced differently during and after early access? We don't plan on changing the pricing. How are you planning on involving the community in your development process? Similar to our early access release of The Forest, we will be taking feedback and suggestions from the community here on Steam and across social media. So that's everything they've had to say. Now, I don't know if you realize that this is the first time they've said anything about the game since their delays, which didn't say much. They don't like to tell, they'd rather show. Now, I'm just going to start with probably the most controversial thing, is that will the game be priced differently during and after early access? And they state, we don't plan on changing the price. I think this is probably the only thing that might piss people off. I honestly don't see a problem with this at all, because the game is already ridiculously cheap. Though the overall thing of being an early access and still full release, I think I said this should have been the thing from the start. They were very successful with The Forest. They had a winning formula. I don't know why they would change it. If you release a game in full release, you're putting the game on the pedestal, as in this is going to be the final product. And that's quite risky. Unless you're a AAA developer with hundreds of people working on the game, you might have some issues. I actually never really understood why they would want to go with a full release, and that's not based on anything I've experienced because I have played it. I just feel like as a game developer, putting your neck out like that is just too risky. I know some people are pissed about this, but fuck them. I think developers are probably more concerned about releasing a game before it's done, more so than what the players are, because they are the ones that wear the criticism. They're responsible for the decisions. They have to wear that responsibility. We just get to bitch and moan. For those who are quite new to The Forest and started playing after it went full release, you never got to experience what The Forest was like before that. And it was like every month we got new content. It was like Christmas every month. That's what it felt like to me, because there was always something coming, and they never charged you for it. There was never any DLC with The Forest. I mean, I do predict that there will be some for this one, but the pricing they put on their games isn't a lot. When you've only got a small team working on a game, you don't have a lot of overheads. You don't have to pay a lot of people. And what it really comes down to is that they were left with 2 options. Do we delay the game for a 4th time to finish what we've got to do, or do we release it in early access? Now, my prediction, and I'm very confident in this, is that the game is already done, and it's probably been done for a long time, but they've wanted to add new things to the game, and these things were in work in progress. And these things probably were a little bit too complicated because they're adding a lot of new features that have probably never been done before. Those features aren't complete, and they're probably filled with bugs. So they've probably just put it to the side in the WIP section, work in progress, and they're just going to add it over time. So we're still going to get a full game. It's just going to take some time. And it's better to put out 50 fires with bug fixing than put out 100 fires. Because I'd imagine that N-Night is going to be working overtime after the game comes out to fix any bugs that may arise. And while they're doing that, they're also working on the work in progress content. I know I sound like I defend N-Night a lot, but N-Night is the team that gave me a career on YouTube. I was a police officer, I was injured, I couldn't go back to physical work. These guys opened the door for me and I'm thankful for it. So yeah, I've got a bias, but honestly, I don't care. I can admit to it. though I have been critical of their decisions before, and I'll still be like that. I just haven't got enough to be critical about at this point in time. There's me in my head right now wondering if I'm just going to cut a lot of what I just said then, but guess we'll have to wait and see. I cut a lot from my voice recordings. Now, as mentioned at the start of the video, they did cover system requirements. I don't think these system requirements are too bad. I think if your computer's over 5 years old, you might need to replace something. I have in the past upgraded my PC for a game. Those two games were Morrowind and Skyrim. So I have done this before, and I know a little bit more about computer building at this point in time compared to back then. So what I've done is I went on PC Part Picker and I come up with a rough estimate of what would be a decent computer, and typical that I've done it and now prices have gone up on it. Now this would be an ideal build. It's not the bare minimum. This would get you a good experience in the game. Unfortunately, it costs about $1,850 in Australia, though in the US is what I originally did it in. Was $1,150. All these parts are fairly good, I think. Example, you could go the 5600X instead of the 5700X on the CPU, though for like $20 more, you get a lot more, I think. I do not recommend using the cooler that comes with AMD. I recently just built a server that I'm going to be running Sons of the Forest games on. I used the AMD cooler temporarily until I could get another one, a Dark Rock Pro. And unfortunately, when I went to take the whole cooler off, the CPU stuck to the cooler. I should have given a little twist before I pulled it off. It was so scary, it's not funny. It was a 3950X. The rest of the stuff like the motherboard, RAM, and NVMe drive are good. The case is completely up to you. You don't really need a really flush one. Same with the power supply. The only thing that I got stuck when trying to make this list was the video card, because the GPU market at the moment is just absolutely trash. I don't know much about AMD cards, so I can't really say much about them. Though what I know about Nvidia is that the 4000 series is turning out to be a bit of a shit show, and that's way overpriced for what you are getting. Now, you could just go 3000 series, and that's what I would recommend. Unfortunately, Nvidia is no longer making them, so they're starting to dry up. And because the 4000 series is so bad, everyone's buying up the 3000 series. They recommend a 1080 Ti, but that card is getting quite old now. I've actually still got my one. It's still going solid. Now, you could go secondhand, but there's a lot of controversy regarding secondhand GPUs, whether they've been used for crypto mining, which there's a lot of information about that, whether it's actually bad for a card or not. I personally would rather not get one that had been used for crypto mining. That's just me. But if you can, try and get something like a 3060, because that would be a brand new card you can get. You could try like a 2060. The 2060 is actually worse than the 1080 Ti, I believe. Even the 2070 might be worse than it. The 2000 series didn't make great leaps over the 1000 series, because the 1080 Ti was just an absolute beast of a card for its time. I'm probably going to keep it forever because it's basically a museum artifact. It came out, it was that good. So I wish they had have probably put something on the recommended specs a little bit different to the 1080 Ti because of just how good it was at the time. I think it might be a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Misleading, I would say. They probably should have stuck a 2000 series card there instead. So my advice is this is the kind of build I would get if I was in a situation. It's still quite pricey though. You could go cheaper and cut corners, but that's kind of out of my expertise is finding cheaper builds. I generally go from moderate to higher end products when it comes to computing, because that's me. I don't spend my money on other things. If you're going to do this, get a 3000 series card if you can. The 4000 series is a shit show at the moment. The only decent card that's probably worth it is the 4090, but that is such a monster of a card that you're going to bottleneck your CPU probably no matter what you get. Or you could do some research on AMD's Radeon series, but I don't know enough to say. I guess my concluding thoughts are just don't worry about the game not being stable. It's going to be stable. There's just going to be features that are missing that they were hoping to fit in when the time came for release. That's pretty much it. And I don't know if that's 100%. That's a very good educated guess. Let's put it that way. I'm not breaching the NDA. I should probably have many times before. But anyway, if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Cheers.